Spark.N.Stride. Spark.N.Stride.
Heavy duty.
It's much.
OP,
What's up?
what's happening, my brother? Oh man, this is so much fun, dude. This is my office partner from Air Force Recruiting, Mr. Steve Weston. Man, the myth, the legend, the architect, the general.
The general.
We are kicking it on Spark.N.Stride. What's up, Steve?
What's going on, man?
Cheers to you, man.
Appreciate
Oh man, happy holidays, bro.
Same to you. Thanks for
Friday
allowing me to
night,
come
Friday
here and hang
night,
out.
and thanks for coming by to kick it with me, man.
This is good.
Is that not good?
Yeah, I dig that.
Yeah, man. 10 Mile Distillery.
I'll be taking a picture of that before I leave.
Oh, yeah. So this is a special bottle. Revolution is the batch, and they have like a whole marketing thing behind it. They're upstate. Yeah. So this is my cousin's buddy's place from law school. So we were up there last weekend hanging out, and is that not good?
Yeah,
It's delicious.
digging
dude.
it.
So, yeah, man.
That's good stuff, man. It's
Yeah.
smooth.
So what's going on, brother?
Man, I'm just trying to live my life, you know?
Trying to live my life to the fullest, baby.
That's right. You know how this Air Force retired life is, man.
Man.
It's a different ball game.
Yeah, it's the golden ticket, man. It's the golden ticket. I feel like, shoot, we hit the lotto, man. We hit the lotto.
Yeah, man. You know, all those years, you know, we would tell all the people that we brought in, like, it's worth going the long run, like going like the long game.
Yeah,
This
sure.
isn't a sprint. This is a cross country run,
Sure.
and now it's paying off in dividends. You know.
Oh man, you know, like it's funny, man, because like with my situation, so when I got back from Afghanistan in 2016, I decided that I would get off of active duty because I had an assignment to Korea. And I was just like, man, I had like a gut feeling, and I was like, this just doesn't feel right. And it was like I felt as though for my entire career, I had always put the Air Force first, put my service first, right? Service before self. And then in 2016, I was thinking to myself, like, man, like, I want to do something for me. And that's kind of like how I came off of active duty after 16 and a half years, which was like everyone thought I was crazy. But you know, what's meant for you is meant for you, man. So what was written was already written. I just had to do what I felt was right. And that was come off of active duty. I got into the reserves at the 514th. And then lo and behold, man, I was able to piece my active duty with my reserve time, and I was able to add up my points, and I was able to retire because what people that are listening and watching need to understand is that the military retirement today is not the same as when we came in.
Mm-hmm.
So ours, you know, we were considered legacy, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
So now it's not that. It's, you know, the blended retirement, which has his good, you know, I'm sure there's pros and cons to it. I'm good with the decision that I made, though. Like my pro is pretty good, man. But now, man, is good, man. Is good, man. It's good to see you, man.
Yeah.
It's good to see you, Steve.
It's always good to connect with, you know, former comrades. You know. Like,
Absolutely, man.
You know, it's funny because, like, you know, I stayed in Jersey. I didn't, you know, like some people retire and move away.
Yeah.
We didn't. We stayed here. You know. So
Yeah, sure.
Constantly running into people that we worked with in the past.
Yep.
You know, I've run into you a dozen times.
Sure.
Like, you know,
at the beach here,
at the
there.
beach, on base,
On base.
whatever.
Yep.
You know, not just you, but like I run into all these different people. You know, that you and I have both worked with over the years.
Yeah.
At different points. And it's cool, man, to like connect with everybody and see where they're at. You know, like like last you and I worked together. I had one kid. Now I got 4. You know, like things change. You know what I mean? You know, so you got a little one now.
Yeah,
You know, like
yeah,
you know,
yeah.
like you know, like we're both married, got
Sure.
things going on.
Yep.
You know, it's just it's wild.
It's cool though, man, to like be able to get together and connect or reconnect, if you want to call it that,
Yeah.
or be on my podcast, dude. Like, this is awesome. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? Because so folks will ask me, they'll be like, hey man, how did you do 24 years? Like, how did you do that? Right. And without thinking about it, I always tell people it wasn't me. It was the people that were with me serving. Because I always feel like it's those people that bring you to the next step or the next level, right? Because a lot of times, man, like you're serving somewhere, but like your family's not nearby. This was a little different for us. Like we were in New Jersey, we had family like in the area.
Yeah.
But even though your family is still not experiencing the same things that we were experiencing, because although we were still in the state of New Jersey, we were playing like a different role. We were active duty Air Force recruiters right after the housing collapse of 08.
Yeah.
You know,
actually during it.
Right, yeah.
At the tail end,
At the tail end, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I even, if I'm not mistaken, I think we even like had like 1 or 2 shutdowns when we were like 2010.
Like budgetary,
right, like 2 government or attempt government shutdowns or whatever. But yeah, man, like you think about your 24 years and you just think about all these different people that came into your life that ultimately helped you get to the next phase of your career almost,
Yeah.
Because like to even imagine that you did it all on your own is like, that's silly, right? Like there's no way.
It's like that old saying, it's not the place, it's the people in the place. Like I've been to places in the world like like some people couldn't even imagine.
Mm-hmm.
And it sucked. Combat zone is not a fun place to be.
Sure.
I don't think anybody enjoys being there, but like it was the people I was deployed with, that we got through it.
Yeah.
And those are some of the people I'm tightest with, like even to this day, 20 years later.
Yeah.
They're all over the world. We're all retired now, or maybe they got out and went and did their own thing.
Sure.
10 years ago or whatever. But I still keep in contact with a lot of those folks. There's a bond there.
Yeah.
That's
one of the main reasons why I even have Facebook. Like, I mean, don't get me wrong. Like I'll post every now and again, but there's a lot of folks that are with me on Facebook that were with me at my first base.
Yeah.
So, they're seeing photos of me. They're seeing photos of my daughter. Like folks will message me and they're like, hey man, like, I feel like I know who your daughter is. Like, I feel like I watched her grow up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
On social media, which is kind of trippy if you really want to peel that onion back. But yeah, man, I mean, dude, like you and me, 2010, 11, 12, the office in East Brunswick. Like
we
that
were
was
jamming.
That was wild, man.
We were freaking jamming back in the day.
Oh man. you know what's a good feeling too, man, is the folks or the young men and women that we helped in that time.
Yes.
That we helped them kind of get their foot into the Air Force and basically make a life for themselves. You know what I mean? Like they were looking at us. They're like, man, like we want to do what they're doing. Right. Yeah. And for many of them, we were able to like get them to do that.
Yeah.
So that's it's a good feeling, man.
What was cool is it came full circle with a couple of folks that we put in. And I say we because we did it together.
Sure.
Whether they were mine or yours or
Agreed.
whatever.
Yep.
We did it together.
They were ours.
People like Tommy Z.
Mm-hmm.
He's crushing it right now.
Yep.
Doing very well. I got another one. You remember Nicola Marone?
Mm-hmm.
He actually ended up getting commissioned.
Wow.
We actually reconnected at McGuire. He came up to me when I put on E7, and he was there at my induction ceremony. I didn't even know it. He was in the background. He came up and saw me at the end. I was like, oh my God, and then there's another one, Michael, who we put in. Not only is he having a successful career, but he ended up getting stationed in the 314th with me during my final assignment. So while I was a flight chief in Philadelphia, he was one of the recruiters in Atlantic City. So a guy that I put in, we put in, became a recruiter. And I got to watch him do the thing, what we did for those years. And he was actually my proffer for my retirement ceremony.
Wow.
And now he's one of the first Space Force recruiters.
I was at your retirement.
Yeah, he was. Remember?
I was at your
yeah,
retirement ceremony.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, dude,
That's wild,
so
right?
crazy.
So it's like you get to see firsthand. You know, we helped build the foundation, but then you get to see what they did with it.
Yep.
You know, and it's very rewarding.
Yeah.
You know, super rewarding. 10 years later, 15 years later. You know.
Wow, man. And then think about also, so you know, you're describing like a point in time that was roughly 2.5 to 3 years, roughly this time frame almost, right?
Yeah.
Is that fair to say? Like this?
I did, 3.
Right.
Yep.
So, but dude, think about like all the other people throughout our careers that we somehow affected their life in some kind of way.
Yeah.
Whether it was you were supervising them or whether they were your supervision, you know, like I always feel like if you're not, there was a part where my first year in the Air Force, I thought I was going to get put out. Like I was on my way out, right?
Yeah.
But what was cool about it was that, you know, someone felt they saw a little bit of myself in them and decided to mentor me, right? I never even knew what the word mentor was, or I never knew what mentee was.
Yeah.
In any case, you start learning and you start, as you're growing into like who you are, and then you're growing into like who you are as a service member, and then who you are as a service member in the Air Force, and then it keeps, you know, going on from there. But you come to realize that you are adding value, because in the beginning you don't. That's not something that you're being trained to do, or something that
you don't even realize.
You don't even realize, right? But as you keep going down the path, you start, oh, like I have something to bring to the table here. I'm adding value, and what I mean by adding value is that you're affecting how other people see themselves within the service. You know what I mean? Like even if it could be someone who's, you know, been in longer than you, but maybe they're going through like a rough time and they feel like you're the person that they can confide in. So just because they're maybe been in longer than you or have more rank than you, they see that you're someone that they could, you're an ear, you're a shoulder, you're a wingman.
But it's true, you know, like the first 6 years I was in the contingency response wing. It's now called the 621st Contingency Response Wing. You know what that unit is, McGuire. When I first got into it, we were just an AMS. And so I came
What's
in,
an AMS?
Air Mobility Squadron.
Oh.
And so
if I ask you stuff like that, I'm like, I know
jargon,
what it means. I know what it means, but I'm just gonna act silly over here. So
I got you.
Okay, cool.
Yep. So, you know, coming right out of technical school, you know, where we learn our basic job, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, I was air transportation, loading cargo planes.
Yep.
Not a load master, but similar.
Mm-hmm.
And so I came right out of technical school, and I went straight into the contingency response field, you know. And so I was exposed to things that were not normal for my career field at the time, unless you were in like a mobile flight out of Charleston or in Germany at Ramstein. Like they were very small teams that did like this bear-based stuff. And so, you know, for 6 years, I was in a unit that all we did was establish airfields from scratch. So like Kandahar, I was on a team that started that. You know, Kirkuk, Spiker, you know, just riddling them off, you know. But there were, like what you said, like on those trips, you bond with those people. Your peers could be one up or one down from you.
Mm-hmm.
You lean on each other. You know, when you're in that type of environment, you don't have anybody else. You know, at the time I wasn't married. You know, my family was in Western PA. I was by myself in Jersey. You know, these were my family. These were the people that I leaned on.
Mm-hmm.
And I learned a lot, you know, at a very young age. I came in right out of high school. So, you know, I wasn't out in the world for a few years. You know, first before I joined, like I got my high school diploma and then I was gone, you know. And so
Did you always want to join the Air Force?
Oh, yeah. My father was in the Air Force. I grew up around it, a multi-generational family. I am the only one of my generation that's in right now.
Okay.
But I do have a cousin that's in the next generation after me that is in now. She's in the Marine Corps.
Okay.
But yeah, I even my parents will tell you, like, from, like age 10, 11, right around there, it was pretty apparent.
Really?
Kind of what route I was going.
What was your dad in the Air Force?
He was a aerospace ground mechanic.
Okay.
So age.
Yep.
He did. So he worked on the generators that power the aircraft on the flight line. He did that for like 8-9 years, and then he separated, got out.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, man. What was when you went to Kirkuk? Like, that was my first deployment. But when you went there, because I'm assuming you got there ahead of, if you're building up the base.
Yeah, we were there establishing it.
You were like, what do you remember about Kirkuk? Because that was like 03, right?
Well, so I was there right after the airborne jumped into northern Iraq. And so once the airborne had jumped into northern Iraq, we went into Kirkuk. I think 10th Mountain Division was there at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And our role was to assist them in getting resupply. We worked the aero medevacs, so a lot of like folks not doing so hot, came through my way. Smoke pillowing clouds everywhere, because it was in the thick of it.
Yeah,
we're still hitting things and hitting them hard.
Sure,
I
remember.
And so,
do you remember what month you got there? I got there in July. No, I got there July 10th of 03.
I was like January.
Wow, so you
March.
were
right before the wet season.
Right.
Kandahar, I got there in December of 2001. Wow. I was there till April of 2002.
Yeah.
The Marine Corps got there a little bit before us. They took the airfield, established perimeter, and then we came in, set up comms, started turning aircraft, bringing in resupply, and then we were there for the Rakistan transition when the Army took over from the Marine Corps.
Whoa.
So, like, detainee camps were there.
Yep.
We put all the detainees on the aircraft to Guantanamo, like all that stuff.
Oh, man.
Yeah.
Dude, man, that's wild. Kirkuk was like my first deployment. And I remember, do you remember the cantina?
Yeah.
Do you remember the cantina?
They had like an aircraft with netting all over it or something, right?
It was wild, right?
Yeah,
it was like, man.
Like an old MiG or something. It was like.
That was the original one. And then it went to like, so that was the original one. And then it went to like the Iraqi Air Force general's house. I don't know if you remember this.
No,
like,
that's
it was
after
like,
my time. Yeah.
It was like it was 2 stories, and then on the third they had like a sun deck. They had like a big like.
Oh, that's cool.
Like you could like look out.
It's wild, man. Like when we got there, we stay on the flight line.
Mm-hmm.
We don't go anywhere else. So we put our like even Kandahar, all of them. We build our tents right there on the airfield. We don't leave the airfield because we're 24/7 turning birds and helos. So we don't really get to go out and explore. We're there doing the job, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
But it's wild. Like for example, like at Kandahar when we first got there. I don't know if a lot of people know history, but what was it, back in the 70s? The Russians went through there and tried to take over Afghanistan or whatever it is that they were doing there, right? Mm-hmm. They got pushed back.
Was it like a proxy war, right? It was like
something like that, we were supplying the weapons and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But yeah, very similar to like this whole Ukraine thing, right?
Bro.
But like 40, 50 years ago, right?
Yeah.
But when we got there, because the Russians basically, when they got pushed out, they just dropped everything and ran. Mm-hmm. They didn't take their stuff with them. Mm-mm. So when we got there, bro, like we had to set our tents up and build our camp on the parking ramp because there were landmines everywhere. We didn't have any minesweepers there yet, so there were landmines. True story. If you go to McGuire Air Force Base and go to the Warfare Center, where the contingency response, that fenced-in area by the C-141, if you go in there, that's called the Warfare Center. That's where we do all our reconstitution for our trips. There's also a force protection building in that compound. In that force protection building, if you go in there and look at the wall, all the weapons that are on the wall were brought back from that trip.
Whoa.
So the rocket launchers, they're all Russian. Rocket launchers, the AKs, like all that stuff. They're all like the bolts are taken out and everything.
Yeah.
Like they're up on the wall.
Yeah, they're on display.
Because of force protection, we would teach air-based ground defense. We would have to know what certain weapons were, things like that. But yeah, man, like we just found them laying on the ground. they just left them, you know, like you're like pulling them out of the ground and stuff. It wasn't until like a month after we got there that the Canadians and the Norwegians got there with the minesweepers and minesweeped, and then we started pushing the Kandahar camp out into the dirt. So the whole camp was pretty much on the tarmac. So when we landed the aircraft, we would have to land, do a 360 spin, load them, and then they would take off from the taxiways because we had no ramp. We were living on the ramp.
Wow.
Yeah, so it was pretty wild.
How old are you when you're doing this?
1920. I thought I have only known 1 year of peace during my time in my 22 years. I joined in 2000, and in 2001 when the towers got hit. You know, I was actually in Egypt when the towers got hit.
I was just going to ask you, where were you? Yeah,
I was in Cairo.
Tell me a little bit about that. Like, what happened?
Well, there I was, 19-year-old me, or I had just turned 20 during that trip.
Wow.
And we were there for Iron Cobra, Bright Star. It's a very large joint military exercise, one of the largest in the world. And they would do it like every couple of years on a rotation.
Okay.
So we would partner up with like some Middle Eastern nations, some nations from Europe, like France, Italy, the UK, the Australians would be there, along with the Jordanians, Egyptians. And so we would go there and do joint exercises. We were also there, like testing out new, for example, folks that are in air transportation would know gates.
Mm-hmm.
We were there testing out deployed gates for the very first time. And then
What's a deployed gate?
So deployed gates is like the system we use to track all our cargo movements, tonnage,
okay.
load plan,
yeah.
manifests,
Mm-hmm.
what's going where and why, all that stuff.
Yep.
So if I'm shipping a pallet of cargo
Mm-hmm.
to, I don't know, King Fahd, Jordan,
Mm-hmm.
that paperwork, all the hazardous materials paperwork, everything is in there.
Mm.
We could digitally transmit it. But it had always been a fixed system at a base, right, on the hard line. It had never been used in, like, with an MRSAT, Iridium cell phone, like connecting with a satellite and transmitting that data, like, remotely.
Whoa.
So we would go out with, like, a mobile Iridium phone, a mobile satellite dish, like, set it all up, hook it up to a laptop, and we would transmit everything, like every night we would do a transmission and send all that stuff.
Wow.
But while we were there to set the camp up, for the entire exercise. And all of a sudden, one day, they're like, everybody's locked down. We're like, what? Hey, what do you mean? They're like, no, everybody's locked down. So they locked us all down. We couldn't go anywhere, couldn't do anything to us. Nobody would tell us anything. And then it was like a day or so later, they're like, all right, this is what happened. The towers got hit. This is, all this is going on,
So they locked down comms.
They locked everything down.
So
yeah.
you guys were like pretty much in the black.
Yeah.
For a day or so.
I'm sure like, the 05s and above knew what was going on.
Sure.
But like, the junior enlisted, we had no idea.
Wow. And it's not like now where like everyone has a phone.
Social media.
Yeah, right.
Like we didn't have that in 2001.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We barely had email back then. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh, I had a pager for crying out loud, like, but it was wild. So like after they told us what happened, they're like, all right, this is no longer an exercise. Like this is real world.
Whoa.
Right. And so we went real world. And so now all this stuff we're supposed to be testing in an exercise, we're now applying real world, real time. And so we started pushing special operations forward into Afghanistan from Cairo.
Wow.
And so that's why like they were there first. They whether they were brought in via ship through
Sure.
Kuwait or whatever, or through that sea right there, or we were pushing them via C-17s and C-130s from Cairo. So once they all got in there, then we came back to McGuire, reconstituted, and then we went back out to meet them in place. Yeah, so
Man,
it was pretty wild.
What do you think you learned the most about yourself? Like throughout, like, because you're a young guy when this is when this is happening. You know what I mean? Yeah. When you reflect back on that, like, what do you think is like what's like your one takeaway? I'm sure there's many, but like one.
Yeah. Sense of urgency. Like, when you're trained, they say that all the time, right? Sense of urgency, attention to detail, Don't sweat the small stuff. Get it done, right? Like you're like, but why? Why, Mach? Why do I got to do it? Like in those situations, there is no why. It's like, yo, we got to get this done. How are we gonna do it? When can we do it? In 10 minutes? All right, let's do it. Like it's just you learn how to think outside the box. You learn to adjust to everybody else around you. So patience, right? Understanding, but sense of urgency. Like this is life and death. Like if we don't do what we're supposed to do, there's a Marine Corps unit that's not going to get their resupply. If they don't get resupply, how are they going to do their job? If we don't bring in new comm equipment, how are they going to communicate to the other teams around the area? If we don't bring in helos, how are we going to protect ourselves when we have an insurgency? You know, it's just like everything comes down to like if we don't do something right, like somebody could die. Like and that's real. You don't really feel that until you're in that situation. But like sense of urgency was something like even to this day, like I have a hard time. I don't like being late. You know, like that's something like very early on that was like ingrained. I'm always the first person to arrive. Anybody that's ever worked with me would know like if he ain't the first person there, he's the second person there. You know, and that's kind of the why behind that, you know.
Sure,
but
yeah.
I would say that it also was kind of a detriment too, because I was brought into that so early in my career that I really wasn't developed like I should have been from the get-go because, you know, my career field typically works a strat port at like Dover or McGuire, you know, or Charleston or Travis.
What's a strap port?
A strat port's basically like if you go to the airport, all the people that work on that aircraft, not the mechanics, but like the guys that load your bags in, the fleet, the passenger terminal, the passenger service people, the terminal operations center. That's all my career field in the Air Force. That's what we do. And so like typically that's what I would have learned. I would have been taught that. I wasn't taught that right from the get-go. I was taught parts of it, but the rest of what I was taught was combat operations. For a while, we were actually called combat air transportation for a little while because we weren't like typical strat port. We were very unique. Very, you know, the rapid global mobility mindset was developed in that unit. We developed it. Colonel Kip Self developed that. That was his baby. He's now since passed. God bless him. But that's what we did, you know. And so, yeah, it was high speed, low drag. I'm gonna tell you, like I got pictures, and you used to see my photo album in the recruiting office. It's like this freaking thick, right? And a lot of those pictures are in there, you know, and that's where I learned high speed, low drag, just get it done, whatever. But the problem is we bent a lot of rules because it was wartime, you know. So when I finally in 2006 got stationed at Pope, working a strat port with the 82nd Airborne, helping them out in JSOC. I was accustomed to high speed, low drag, get the freaking red tape out of the way. Let's just get it done. And they were the complete opposite. and so every day I would be fighting like, let's just do it. Let's get this done. Let's load this plane. Let's do this. Like we could totally have this done already. Like, what are we waiting on? And it was red tape, BS, like egos got in the way. Like, and it was like, it was so slow. I was like, I didn't know. I got bored.
Sure.
I got really bored to the point where I was like, I thought about getting out, you know, because I was so used to I did 9 deployments in 8 years, you know, and so like I was so used to high speed that when it came time to slow down, I didn't know how to. And it was a detriment to me career-wise. Like I stagnated at Pope. And I was thinking of getting out. And then my father was like, why don't you just change career fields, dude? Right? Now you're like, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like,
okay.
And so I thought about TI and drill instructor. And then I thought about recruiting. You know, like my uncle retired from the Army. He was an Army recruiter for a while, and my father remembered that. It's my great uncle, his uncle, but you know he was like, why don't you try recruiting? Like, you know, your uncle did really good at it. You know, he could sell anything. You know, like give it a shot. You know.
Yeah.
You know? So I put in a package the old school way before all this. What do they call it now? DSD, the direct service.
Okay.
Basically, they non-volunteer you now, right? Like, basically, they non-volunteer you now. But back then, you had to formally apply to a package, get pictures in uniform. It went to a board.
Yep.
You had to compete. You know what I mean? And then they would select you or whatever. You know. So I went through that whole process, man, and so that's how I ended up in recruiting. But I'm so glad that I did.
Man, me too.
I'm so glad that I did.
Dude, I found. Let me
Hook that up. Yeah,
so I'm gonna when I edit all this stuff, I'm gonna add the pictures of us. Remember when we went to News 12?
It's on my LinkedIn profile. I just shared that picture like a couple weeks ago. Erin Remus is in there. You remember her? She was the person that I put in that worked there.
Yes.
That's how we got the tour.
Yes.
Yes.
Bro.
Was that
that is so right.
Celia Mendoza was a reporter there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember you calling me and you were like, "Hey man, yo Mach, can you meet me at News 12?" And I was like, "Yeah, what's up?" He's like, "We're gonna get a tour." I was like, "All right,
I'll be there.
I'll be there, bro." Oh man,
that was cool, wasn't it? Like that was so. Like they took us back, showed us the green room.
Oh,
like,
dude, it was
all
like
that?
I remember all that, dude. Like, you know, so recruiting was probably the first time ever in my life that I figured out what I was good at.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
You were good at it.
You're
still good at it.
But dude, like I just didn't, because when I first came in, I was trying to, like, I was going through a whole bunch of stuff. Like our situation is a little different. Like you grew up with your parents and everything, and you know, like I was in and out of like shelters and all this wild stuff. But I was trying to, at the time, I had felt as though my girlfriend at the time, I remember my high school sweetheart or whatever.
Yeah.
She went away to like school at like Binghamton University.
Yeah.
And I just remember visiting there, and I remember feeling like, man, like I'm not smart. Like I'm not smart. Like these guys are way smarter than me. Like this is what she's gonna gravitate to, is to like a smart guy. And then just when the whole Air Force thing presented itself as an opportunity, I was like, oh man, like this might be my chance to kind of like show that I'm somewhat smart. You know what I mean? Because, you know, they're like, oh, like the Air Force is the hardest branch to get into.
Yeah, right.
The Air Force, all that good stuff.
Yeah, right.
But even still, right? So I had been in the Air Force roughly 10 years before I became a recruiter.
Yeah.
So I knew I was, you know, my job was medical logistics, right? So I kind of figured what I was good at in like the logistical space. But going into recruiting, I'm like, dude, I remember feeling like this. I was like, you guys have given me a car, a computer, a cell phone,
an office,
and keys to this office.
Yeah.
Where it's just
this knucklehead,
and then you show up,
and then I showed up like a couple months later,
dude. Like, I'm like, you guys are gonna pay me to do this? Like, this is what you're gonna pay me to do?
This is my own business at this point,
bruh. Like, and it just, and then you just, I'm telling you, Steve, right now with this whole thing, Spark.N.Stride, the podcast, and all this other stuff that I want to get myself into, it's all the foundational things that we learned in recruiting school.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Zone canvassing, establishing rapport. Like, it's all these things. And even like some of these other ideas that I come up with, and I'll talk to my wife and she's like, how did you come up with that? Like, how did you come up with that and then put this in place and this in place? And how did you get to that? I'm like, I have no clue.
Sometimes it just happens.
But it's the recruiting, dude. It's all of that stuff that we learned. All that stuff, you know, and then obviously with a little bit of maturity and some time, and you figure out how to piece things together. But yeah, man, that was like one of the, that was a great experience for me anyway. Like, you know, us being in that office and just the dynamics of like what we had going on. I think also when you're in it, when you're doing it, you're kind of like, it's almost coming like you're almost like a duck in water. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're just like, oh, this is just where I'm supposed to be.
Right.
But now that, some time has passed and now we reflect back on it, it's like we were fortunate to get that experience, man.
Yeah. Having retired and gone into corporate recruiting,
right.
Like they're different, but there's a lot that's the same, right? Like at the core of recruiting, it's a sales job.
Mm-hmm.
And we got sales certifications through our various different, like I think I have 3 or 3 or 4, from PSS all the way to
PSS,
to
professional selling
skills. And then, what do we do? Like Brooks Group after that, impact sales,
sure.
Investigate, meet, acknowledge. What is that? Probe, convince, tie, right?
Yep.
Like,
features and benefits.
Right? Features and benefits. Mattress. Do you
dude.
still remember that?
Yeah.
Money, advancement, travel, training, security, self, education. I didn't do it in order, but
yeah. I was like, what are you doing, bro? Like,
I still remember that. It's been like freaking 14 years. But
dude, let me tell you how I memorized the mattress, bro. So day one of recruiting, it's a Thursday, and then they give us the mattress, like, they explain it to us.
Mm-hmm.
They give us a blank sheet of paper. They're like, hey, Monday morning, when you come in, the very first thing you're going to do, you're going to fill in. And if you don't pass, like, you're out.
Recycle, order it. Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
I'm like, shit, dude. Like, this is like the very first thing that I need to, like, memorize pretty much.
Yeah. Remember the scripts?
Yes,
we had to memorize whole scripts.
Yes.
Like verbatim.
Like,
not like one pagers either. They were like 4 or 5 page scripts.
he's telling he's telling
right.
Yeah.
So you had to do your, what was that? Week 13s. No. Week 13 is when it was like the do or die. But we had several before that where the instructors would come in and act like an applicant.
Yeah.
You have no idea what scenario they're playing until you get into it. You just have to work the script, right?
Sure. Yeah.
And then like do the conflict negotiation, whatever. Like we had a couple people where they had like multiple people come in the office. One guy wanted to sell drugs or something. You had to like tactfully dismiss them or
not
like
here, sir.
A parent comes in and loses their mind or whatever. How are you going to handle that situation? Remember, like,
bro, yeah.
We would watch each other do it, right? Like you would go in, I would watch you.
The other part of it that you're leaving out is like the two-way mirrors.
The two-way mirrors, yeah.
Right. So I'm gonna try to describe it as best as I can for the folks listening, but it's pretty much like a bunch of offices and there's like a two-way mirror and there's a hallway in between.
Yeah.
And at each mirror they have a microphone, right? That they could switch
they videotape
on,
it.
And it's videotaped.
Right.
Yeah.
They could play it back and show you what where you messed up or if you did really well, they would be like, hey, when you tactfully dismiss, like what you said, like that was perfect.
Yeah.
Like you should do that every time. You know what I mean? That shit's wild, bro. I don't know any corporate recruiters that ever had to do that.
Yeah.
Any. Ever. Like we had to memorize the mattress first week. We had to memorize the script week 2 and 3.
Yep.
And then week 4, 5, and 6, they are literally throwing us in a room and hitting us with practice scenarios over and over again, recording it, two-way mirror, watching us. Like one instructor would be in the room, the other 2 or 3 be behind the mirror watching and taking notes,
Yeah.
And then afterwards there'd be a feedback session. Like this is, what do you need to work on? This is what you're doing well.
Yeah.
Dude, what corporate recruiters went through that? I don't know any that did.
No, not
even in college. You know what I mean?
Sure. Like, but also, so anytime that I did any kind of training within the military, within the Air Force, like early on, I figured out that you get a chance to choose your attitude every day.
Yes.
So if you show up with a good attitude, because here's the thing, right? Like, so you got to always think to yourself, like one thing is like when you're in class, right? Like you're being instructed, there's an instructor and you're being instructed. Then there's a break, right? There's a break, whatever, 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That's your opportunity, right? To kind of like start engaging like the other folks in your class and start, because if you're going to have a bad attitude or if you're not putting out the best energy and you're just like off to the side, like closed off, everyone's kind of like picking up on that. But you could be the person who's struggling in the course, but if you have the right attitude and you're a pleasure to be around and folks want to kind of like instinctively gravitate to you, dude, like you'll pass.
You'll end up being the top of the class.
You will pass.
Yeah.
Right? But so in recruiting, my situation was a little different because I was coming back from Italy. So I had to pass. I had to make it through that course because I had no base to go back to. Mm-hmm. So what would have happened was,
you would have been left to the mercy of
what had happened was, right? It would have been like, oh, sorry, you flunked out of recruiting school.
Now you're going to Dias. You know
sorry,
what I mean?
Like that's where it's wherever the needs of the Air Force,
you
right?
End up in Minot or something, you know?
Dude, so like I needed to make sure that but in any case, like that was, I was a little worried about all the memorization, but then, you know, like instinctively, I'm like, nah, man, I show up, show up early, right? Practice. You want to talk about practice?
Well, but this is the playoffs. You're talking about practice.
You want to talk about the game I love?
So we weren't just doing it during the school day. Like we were getting together after the day was done.
Yeah.
And we were running the scenarios, practicing the scripts. Yep. Like then we would go out to eat, come back, have a couple cocktails, practice the scripts.
Yep.
You know, like it wasn't just you go to class from 8 to 4 and then you're done. Like, dude, it was like legit. You had to practice. So like by the time you get to a recruiting office, you've had like 7-8 weeks of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's fight or flight, you know, sink or swim.
Sink or swim.
You know what I mean? You're either going to do it or you're not, you know, at that point. It's a little different now because of DSD, but back then it was not as kind.
Sure, yeah.
You know, like it was like, listen, like you need to get it done, right?
I've heard horror stories of people that got into recruiting for like the wrong reasons.
Yeah.
They're like, because back when we did it, we were able to, I don't know how it was for you, but like coming from Italy, so let me tell you what I kind of did though. Listen to me. So similar to your situation, right? Like you're in this career field. Sure. They're like, hey, like maybe you should try something else. Well, in Italy, I wanted to stay. I was trying to stay. And they're like, dude,
why wouldn't you?
You're not married.
Right.
You don't have kids. You're not going to get an extension. It's going to be a 2-year assignment.
Right.
So I'm talking to the chief. The chief was like, hey, man, you should really consider recruiting. I think like that's right up your alley, right? You should. But at the time, we were able to put in our package, but then we were able to list the places that we wanted to the offices that we wanted.
Yeah.
But what I did was I called every single recruiting office in New Jersey along the Parkway, like east of the Parkway, every office. So like from East Brunswick all the way
Tinton
down.
Falls,
all of them,
Toms
bro.
River,
all
of them. Yeah.
Just trying to see who the hell would pick up the phone. So remember Brian Newby from Toms River?
Mm-hmm.
Brian Newby picks up the phone. Tech Sergeant Newby. So then I established a relationship with him from Aviano. So I would call him once a week. But now he's expecting my call on this day. So like now someone's going to pick up the phone. And he would just kind of like school me to what it was about. And, you know, all these different things like, hey, man, I don't know about that office because they just got a recruiter. So that office really isn't vacant. It hasn't been updated yet. Yada, yada, yada. Yeah. Then I did rap with him.
Yeah.
So I did rap with Brian. And then he took me to all of the offices. That's how I knew to put in for East Brunswick. That's how. But again, dude, that's just another way of trying to like figure it out, being resourceful, and ultimately using your network, which I am so big on. I stress that all day, every day. Your network. People come to me, hey man, like you started this podcast, but like, how do you get people to go on your podcast? Because you're not doing it on Zoom.
You gotta talk to people.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You can't just keep to yourself. You
no, of course not.
And mix it up.
But then they're asking me, how do I get the folks on? And I'm just like, it's my network.
Yeah.
It's my network. But they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, no, dude, like you have a network.
Yeah.
just think about it. Like, and then, you know, like that's how this whole, I'm telling you, man, this is how this whole thing has like
Evolved.
morphed itself into like what it is right now, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, man, crazy.
You know what's funny is you brought up the News 12 thing, and I don't know if I told you this, but Erin, who was the young lady that I put in, she went in. I think she did like an enlistment or two, used her education benefits, if I remember correctly. Now she is the chief of public affairs at Langley as a civilian. She's a GS.
Wow.
I just hired one of her troops into my current company as a public affairs. So via direct hire, matter of fact, not even SkillBridge. We had for our contingency response part of my current employer. When if things go down, we have a contingency response department that goes out and helps set comms back up and helps people, like for example, hurricane,
No way.
Stuff like that. They needed a new public affairs guy to handle the West Coast, and so I hire this guy. Next thing I know, she reaches out to me on LinkedIn and goes, "Hey, I heard you're hiring so and so. He's one of mine." Dude, I hadn't talked to her in like 10 years, but that's what you were talking about, bringing value to the table, bringing, impact. That right there, that if it was just that one thing that I brought, I was able to not only impact the military because of her career.
Sure.
But now I'm impacting my new company that I work with because of the network that I built 10, 14 years ago. Like it's come full circle a couple of times. And then, in the 2 years where I was not running the military program, but running the SkillBridge part of it as the subject matter expert, having, number one, gone through the program myself, now I'm hiring it. So I fully, from beginning to end, understand the process, the paperwork, what's involved. I've had so many of those experiences now. My last person that I recruited just got his offer this week. I recruited him last spring.
Wow.
Running into some issues. His command was like giving him problems, kept backing his retirement date, and I just stuck with him, like, we're going to get it, bro. Like, we're going to get it. And finally, he was originally supposed to start in like June or July. He didn't end up starting until like October.
Wow.
And he just got his offer full time. Now he's got his full-time gig is locked in, and he is on cloud 9, man.
Wow, man.
And it's like I've had so many of those since getting out. But the beauty of it is they're all military. I didn't work with anybody but the military, so they're either separating, retiring, or they're a spouse. And so that's what I've been doing for the last 2 years since I've been out.
Wow, man.
Currently, I'm doing something else now, but for almost 2 years, that's what I was doing.
Yeah. That's a lot of impact, man. You start thinking about like all these families you're impacting,
Dude.
helping people. People are transitioning out of the military. They're going through all kinds of different things,
my
man.
God.
Trying to get their feet settled, and yeah, man. Describe to me SkillBridge. So for the folks that are watching and listening who may not know what SkillBridge is.
Yeah, sure. So SkillBridge is a Department of Defense, DoD program where an active duty service member or AGR, AGR is the active duty guard reserve folks, right? We do have some of those. They are able in their final 180 days of service, they can apply, and it's almost, I don't like to call them interns because interns are folks that don't have any skills. They're fresh out of college. Maybe interning is what they do to build skills, right? That's why it's an internship. These are fellows, and they're fellows because they do have skills. They do have value. They do have something to bring to the table. They're not blank sheets of paper, right? These people have like real world shit going on. You know what I mean? And so these fellows have an opportunity to do an internship like process. And so what I mean is an employer has the ability to bring this person on in an unpaid internship like status because they still collect their active duty paycheck while they're in this fellowship, right? And so the purpose of the fellowship, the SkillBridge, is skill bridge. You're probably 60 to 70% of the way there. I'll use us as an example. Recruiters. We are more outside sales as recruiters in the military than we are corporate recruiters. That's why we get sales certifications, because we don't just learn recruiting. We learn outside sales, cold calling, door knocking, chambers of commerce, right? You know, the whole spiel, right? You get to know you're embedded in the community. You're a part of the community, right? Corporate recruiters are different. Even if they're third party, they don't operate that way. They're almost like completely recruiters. There's almost no sales. I mean, they do contract negotiation and things like that, but that's not the same. It's not the same thing as cold calling and knocking doors and going to chambers of commerce doing, you know, and we didn't just do table setups. We did lots of table setups, high schools, colleges, right? We did a couple fairs, parades, like we were doing all kinds of stuff. We were busy, man. We were doing golfing tournaments. We were doing all kinds of stuff, man. You know, but what I learned is like SkillBridge, you know, you're helping somebody. So like us, if I wanted to be talent acquisition when I got out. That was my main goal, dude. I wasn't like, yeah, man, I'll do whatever. Nah, bro. It's not whatever. If you want to do whatever, then how are you going to narrow something down if you're that open-minded? You know, it's good to be open-minded, but in the SkillBridge thing, you need to kind of be like focused, right? And so talent acquisition, like I was 60 to 70% of what they were looking for, just naturally by doing the job, right? And what the SkillBridge does is it gives you an opportunity to come into that company, get on that team, and connect the rest of the dots. Take you from 70 to 100, right? Take you from 60 to 90, right? To get you most of the way there so that the company at the end of that, the intent is they're then going to hire you full-time into that exact same position on the same team doing the exact same thing. And so like for me, that's what it was. I came in, I did my fellowship with Verizon. I worked on the global networks and technology recruiting team where we recruited a lot of like the network operations, field ops managers, cell site engineers, the guys that climb the towers, fix the towers, the linemen, things like that. I did that for 3 months. By the end of that, I did well enough that the military recruiting team was like, yo, we'll take him. We want him, right? And that's how I ended up on that team. And then from that point forward, like I said, I did that, the SkillBridge thing. Like now I'm bringing people in instead of me coming in, right? Yeah. But SkillBridge, that's exactly what it is. It's an internship-like status to allow a service member to gain the experience they need to get that full-time employment with a Fortune 500 company, a local company, a regional company, whoever. Any company can participate in the program. They just have to go through the vetting process. But at the end of the day, any company that does get into the process, the intent should be to hire that veteran at the end. With SkillBridge, though, parallel to it are other programs that are also for spouses and veterans that are already out. So, for example, like Hiring Our Heroes, that's who I went through. I think you went through them too, right? Yeah. Yep. So
yeah, I did it with Google.
You did it with Google. So like there's the corporate fellowship program, which is what most of us go through, right? It's about 1,200 people every cohort, 3 cohorts a year. But there's other programs that Hiring Our Heroes does. They have a spouse program. One of my favorites, I'm partial to, is the Career Forward program. And the reason why is, don't get me wrong, corporate fellowship is great. I'm all about helping the service members, right? But I like the Career Forward program because there's those veterans that got out 5-10 years ago, and maybe they were doing okay. But then COVID happened and shit changed, right? I have one individual, I won't say his name, but he had his own business. And then COVID came with all the distancing and the new regulations and everything, and it was like a food business. Put him out of business. Couldn't operate. Now he's like, he went from having a successful business to like, bro, how am I going to eat today? You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't his fault. He didn't do anything wrong, And so what that program did was offer him an opportunity to switch gears, right? And so what that program is it's sponsored by Google, and they have a slew of certifications that you can earn, right? And it's self-paced, But if you're accepted into the program, you come in, you select one of those self-paced Google certification programs. When you complete that Google certification, you can then compete for the same fellowships as the corporate fellowship folks. So the exact same SkillBridge opportunities, they can compete for those. And it's for not only veterans, no matter how long they've been out, but it's also for spouses. And so I've been able to hire spouses and veterans through that program that wouldn't have had an opportunity otherwise if that program didn't exist. So that's why I'm very partial to that program, because the guys that are getting out and the girls that are getting out, it's important to help them. But what about the ones that did it right, got out, and just circumstances just, they're in a bad way, and they need to get back in the fight.
Dude, like, so I have like a bunch of stuff that I can ask you, right?
Yeah, sure.
But like, I tend to like not do it that way, because like I don't want it to come across as if like I'm peppering you with a bunch of questions. You know what I mean?
Yeah, sure.
Because then it's like turns into like an interview and not like a conversation.
I hear you.
So like I don't want to keep peppering you. You know what I'm saying? Because I got mad shit that I could. The way my mind works, bro, is like
with nothing I'm not used to.
Yeah.
That's the thing about recruiting, man. Is like, what's up today, right? Like what you got for me now.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Hero to zero, right?
Hero to zero.
Zero to hero, hero to zero. Right?
You can't. What was one of the funny ones? What was the funny ones I heard is you can't warm your ass on yesterday's sunshine.
Hell yeah. Why are you bringing up old shit? Well, you did something 10 minutes ago. Who gives a shit? What about right now? Remember we had a flight chief that used to say that all the time. Oh man, you'd be like,
hey,
but boss,
hey man,
I crushed it last month. He'd be like, I don't care. What are you doing this month? You know what I mean?
That dude, man.
Oh, that's funny.
Mr. Chad Cribb.
Mr. Cribb.
Oh my God.
Cribby Cribb.
Man, I can't wait to see him, bro. I haven't seen that dude in forever.
I haven't seen him in forever.
Forever. I don't know if you remember this or not, but we were at a flight meeting, and so Chad Cribb is at the head of the table. We're at an Italian restaurant. We're eating pizzas. And he's trying to get the information out to us. And then like Iannuzzi was sitting next to me, and Iannuzzi was like just like talking. Like he was just being himself, right?
Yeah,
right.
Like
he's kind of like he's just being himself.
He was being himself.
So I don't know if you remember this or not, but Cribb flicked his business card. He's like, hey, give this to him. So he gave him his business card, and he was like, what does it say on there? And he said, flight chief. He's like, read it. He's like, flight chief. He's like, shut the fuck up.
Because he wouldn't be quiet. That's why he was
like, yo, read that shit.
Oh man,
shut the fuck up. I'm the flight chief, like not you. Oh
real.
Man. Oh man.
There was a lot of funny moments, but I don't want to air it out.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Dude.
I still remember we were at a restaurant. I won't say which one, but we were at a restaurant, and everybody's like, "What are you gonna have to drink?" And everybody's like, "Water, Diet Coke, Pepsi," and then Bish was like, "Yingling."
Yeah.
Oh my god. Oh my god.
Remember that time in we were in Freehold? You remember that time?
Oh, a digester. Yeah, bro. I won't repeat what that was about, but that was wild though, right?
Yeah.
Somebody was wound a little too tight is what that was.
Yeah, he probably shouldn't have been talking to us the way he was talking to us.
No, not at all.
And we were being cool. But for those that are like listening and not watching, like my man right here, he's a tall guy. So it was like you would have to imagine like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Danny DeVito. So like I'm Danny DeVito. Yo, Steve is towering over this dude, and we're at the
We were cool though.
Yeah, we were cool.
We were being cool. Yeah.
The place was rocking though.
Yes,
the place
it was.
rocking.
Yes, it was.
And I just like leaned. You put your head down, and I got on my tippy toes, and I was just got to your ear, and I was just like, shh, like, yo, this dude's wilding.
He was hawking.
And
you were hawking.
And you were like, shh, you lasered in, and then they were like, hey guys. Anyway, whatever. Doesn't matter.
The conversation went the way it went.
Yeah, like no animals were hurt
during the filming of this. Oh my god! If I remember right, like that dude had like he was a guardsman or something, like a traditional guardsman. And I think he had just gotten notified he was deploying, and so his buddies took him out to have a couple cocktails, and apparently he had about 10 too many. You know,
and then he saw us, and he thought we were
doing something we weren't supposed to be doing, but it wasn't the case.
He thought he thought he was gonna roll right over us, and little did he know, he picked the wrong motherfuckers.
He did get some choice words from me. That was if you remember correctly.
I don't know if you remember this, but like he kept asking me like what my name was, like who.
Remember when you put your business card in his front pocket? You were like. And then you turned around. You put that business. A matter of fact, I think it was Chad Cribb's business card. You put Chad's business card in there. The flight chief.
Oh, he wanted my boss's information.
You wanted Chad's business card. I didn't have one, and you were like,
I told him. I said, if you wake up in the morning and you still want to contact someone, this is who you could contact. Like,
I wonder if he ever did. Did Chad ever say anything?
Probably
not. Man.
That dude probably woke up and was like...
He probably didn't even... He was probably like, dude, I must have met some cool guys last night. I got a business card. He probably didn't even remember.
And then his boys were like, yo, bro, you almost lost your teeth.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Now, it's like, one of the kids always got something going on.
Yep.
You know?
Dude, like, so one day, man, like, this is like when my daughter was like super young, like 6 months. Where, you know, we just fed the kids down to sleep. We're cleaning the kitchen. And me and my wife, we sat on opposite sides of the living room.
Yeah.
And we're just looking at each other. And we're like, fuck, dude. Like, how do you do it with like more than one? Like, you know what I mean? Like, we're looking at each other. We're just like, how? You know?
Time and task management.
Bruh, I can't even imagine.
And boundaries. Like foundation, right? That's the core of it. If you start it early, when they're little, and build that foundation early on, it gets easier as they get older. Like my oldest boy, we're already seeing, you know, like he's doing very well in school. Like, yeah, he still makes mistakes. He's a kid,
sure.
You know, but at the same time, it's like he's grounded.
Mm-hmm.
Like not grounded in trouble, but like grounded.
Mm-hmm.
Like he's
grounded.
he's
you
know what I mean?
Yeah, he's poised, right?
He's poised, right?
Yeah.
For success, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know, and so that's it. But it's hard, man, because like they all have their own personalities, they all have their ways about them, you know, and you gotta like juggle. And there's always conflict negotiation, right? You know, because they'll be playing nice 1 minute, and the next minute they're Randy Savage elbow dropping off the couch. You know what I mean? True story. My little guy, Linky Bear, he's the 3-year-old. My 8-year-old's laying on the floor on the carpet, you know, watching TV or whatever, chilling, doing his thing, man. Like he's in his Zen space, right? Linky Bear, bro. I watched this from my kitchen, bro. I watched him. He looked at me before he did it, and I go, "What are you doing?" And he just laughed and jumped off that couch. He was probably 3 foot up in the air, came down and right on my oldest boy, man, like right on his head.
Yo.
You know what I mean? And
he could have like really hurt him.
That's boys. You know, they do stuff like that. They'll be chilling, and then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, like one of them will punch each other. What'd you do that for? I don't know. I just felt like it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh my God, bro. Like, what are you doing? You know, like
the words in my head told me to do it. You
mean?
know,
like, why would you do that? I don't know. Go stay in the corner. Go sit on the couch, man.
Jeez,
boy, I'm telling you, I'm getting too over this shit. You know.
Is there anything you wish you could have done different in regards to like being a parent?
More patience, you know, but I think every parent feels that way, right? Like
Yeah.
kids know how to push buttons and play with emotions. That's what they do, right?
Mhm.
They test boundaries. They test what they can and cannot get away with. You
Yeah.
know, I'm older now. I think it's good that I was older, you know, because now I have more patience, understanding, empathy.
Yeah.
Right? When I was younger, it would have been like, oh hell no, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But like, I'm older and wiser. You know, it doesn't mean I'm perfect, but
Sure.
yeah, man, you got to have a lot of patience. The
Yeah.
more, you know, because like I said, it's always something going on.
Yeah.
There are times when I come home from work and there is no downtime. It's like, soon as I walk in the door, it's all right.
Really?
No, not like a bad way, but
No.
but
You're
like,
on. You're on.
you're on. Like, it's
Yeah.
game time. Like, they
Yeah.
got homework to do. They gotta eat. They gotta take baths. They gotta get their pajamas on. They gotta read books. Like, the amount of homework these kids get at like kindergarten these days is unreal compared to what we had. Like, in kindergarten, I think I was learning like what a circle was. You know, these guys are like almost reading now at kindergarten. Like, preschool, they're learning shapes, numbers, things like that. By the time they get to first grade, like for example, my middle one, Wayne, he's 4. He's in preschool. He's already reading. He's already at a first grade level already
Wow.
in pre-K.
Wow.
Like,
Yeah.
he like legit, he reads books,
Yep.
right? He's super intelligent, right? But it, like, because they're starting them younger. So like my oldest boy, he would come home and have 30 minutes of homework, dude, in like first grade. I don't even think I had homework in first grade. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so like when I come home, my wife comes home, it's like there's no downtime. It's like food, homework. They got to read for 20 minutes on top of their homework. You know, you know, then they got to get baths and they got to get this. Then you get like an hour of downtime before they go to bed.
Yeah.
And then by the time we get our downtime, it's 8:30, 9 o'clock. Boy, by the time I'm at 10 o'clock, I'm exhausted. I go to bed, you know.
Yeah.
That's my week, Monday through Friday.
Yep.
The weekends, we get to sleep in, you know,
Yeah.
like take a nap in the middle of the day. Boy,
Yeah.
I'm starting to get used to those
Yeah.
naps in the middle of the day.
Dude, I haven't had a
Bruh.
nap in the middle of the day in a minute.
Bro, you guys, it's like a game changer.
Yeah.
Saturday, nap in the middle of the day, bro. My father just retired, right, from UPS, and he's like, man, every day's a freaking Saturday, man. I take a nap anytime I feel like it. You know, it's like the greatest thing.
Yep.
Dude,
like so for some reason, like when I was in the military, I would nap in the middle of the day.
Would you?
Yeah.
I could never do that. Yeah.
I could, like, I would, because sometimes, man, like, you just, like, I don't know, I felt like I needed it almost, but like now, I think I'm more busier now in the military retirement after the fact life than I was when I was in.
Oh, really?
Dude, I'm on go mode.
MEPS was MEPS played with my emotions for years. You know, never a dull moment.
What was your schedule when you were at the MEPS?
Dude, which one?
Oh, yeah.
I worked 3 different ones. So I was
Oh.
Fort Dix, Fort Ham, and in Pittsburgh MEPS. So I worked 3 different.
Wow.
At Pittsburgh, it was it wasn't too bad. You know, it's a very small MEPS in comparison to most others. You know, so not as busy. It was, don't get me wrong, it was busy, but it wasn't as busy.
Sure.
Fort Hamilton was knuckin' futs. I would get there at like 5 a.m, leave at 4 or 5 in the afternoon, 5 days a week. And mind you, I'm commuting 72 miles one way to get up there too. You know, 5 days a week, and I did that for 5 years.
Wow.
You know,
damn, dude.
And it's not so much the drive and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
It was the actual job itself. Was I think my MEPS tour at Fort Hamilton almost broke me.
Really?
Like, almost broke me.
When did you feel like what do you mean by that? Like, what do you mean?
Like mentally, almost broke me. And Mind you, I'm a guy that deployed 9 times in 8 years. I'm a combat vet, legitimately. I've been shot at, things like that. No, I'm not. I don't brag like I'm not a combat engineer, and I'm not a combat controller. I'm not on that level.
Sure.
But I've had my fair share of experiences. Like I would consider myself a pretty rock steady individual, right?
Yeah.
It pushed me to my limits. Anybody that's ever worked a large MEPS that pushes the amount of people that Fort Ham, I think, is the second largest MEPS in the country by the amount of people they push through it.
What's the biggest? San Diego?
I think it's either LA or Texas, Houston.
Houston's
huge too.
Really?
LA also is big. But it wasn't so much that the work, because I can deal with work. I can deal with long days and hours. I've done 24-hour days before. Like that doesn't bother me.
Yeah.
It was the politicking, the mental shit. When I got to that one in particular, it was not run well. Like the facility itself was not run well at all. It was very inefficient, lots of roadblocks, which caused additional problems. And at the time, I had leadership that wasn't even willing to come down and see it firsthand. We were telling them, hey, number one, I'm undermanned. I'm supposed to have 4 people in here, and there's 2 of us. So we're 50% manned. Pushing one of the largest processing numbers in the entire group. And the group, if anybody doesn't know what a group is, the group's like the entire northeastern United States. So all the MEPs within that, right? But we were pushing all these numbers, working all these hours, but it was like we weren't getting enough done, right? It was affecting production, things like that. But the thing was, it wasn't us. It was the actual MEPCOM facility, their personnel, their civilians, their folks stationed there that were the ones that were creating a lot of the problems. And we were vocalizing it and it weren't being heard. I even had a leader that told me, well, because I work long hours, then you should work long hours and not complain about it. What kind of a leader says that to somebody? If you're working long hours because you suck at time and task management, that's your freaking problem. That shouldn't be my problem. I never said that, but that's what's going through my mind. But I was fortunate enough, eventually that person moved to the side and I got somebody else, and that person stepped in and actually took the time to listen and empathize a little bit and came down and spent a week with us to see it firsthand. And after that week, the light bulb came on and they were like, oh, that's when change happened. And once that change happened, it went from being one of my worst assignments I've ever had to one of my best assignments I ever had, just by a simple change in leadership, understanding, empathy, process realignment. There's a whole.
What was implemented to like?
What
was the biggest change?
So a lot of it was just roadblocks from the staff that was there. For example, like something like what we call a med read. That's when an applicant, remember med reads, applicant, if they have something in their medical background, they have to submit their medical documentation to the chief medical officer who would review it and pre-authorize them to come down and process going through the physical, the academic testing, and all that. Well, they have a certain amount of days per page count to get those done. And so one example was like, let's say, I'm just throwing arbitrary numbers, like these aren't exact, but let's just say they have 2 days to review 30 pages, and every 5 to 10 pages adds a day, right? If I submitted a 30-page med read, instead of getting it back in 2 days, I'd get it back in like 6 or 7 days, which holds up production. And so as a liaison, you're in between the U.S. MEPCOM personnel and your own squadron. You're the middleman.
Yeah.
Right? And so I would have to report the news back, right? Like, why can't I get my people on the floor? Well, this is why. Well, that's bullshit. You need to fix it. I can't fix it. It's MEPCOM that's not letting me. It's not a me thing. It's a MEPCOM thing. Well, that's not an excuse. They didn't want to hear it, right? And it wasn't until we got them in there, and ultimately it came down to is all the commanders of the different branches got together and basically gave the MEPS commander of that facility an ultimatum. You either get this stuff fixed or we're going to file an IG complaint together, all of us. I guess he tried to call their bluff, and so they filed the IG complaint. And so because of that, they came out and did a random inspection. They failed the inspection. Now we know there's a problem and it's documented. Then they failed their next inspection after that. In 4 to 6 months, they get a reinspection. They failed that one. And so at that point in time, they fired a whole bunch of people, hired a whole new staff. And so like a lot of it was like, you ever go to the DMV and the employees there are just like, they don't want to be there. They don't want to help you. They don't even want to smile. They could care less about you. Like you get that vibe, right?
Sure. Yeah.
That's what it felt like dealing with them, right? It was like some of those folks had been there so long and they were so like jaded that they just didn't care. Like, oh, it takes an extra 3 days? Oh, well, what are you gonna, there's nothing you can do about it. Whatever, you know? And so we got rid of a lot of those people, replaced the leader.
That's hard, though.
Oh, dude, it was, like I said, it almost broke me.
Yeah.
You know, it was not good. But fortunately, like finally, like I said, I got a different set of leaders in there. They took grabbed the bull by the horns, and then of course I fed them the necessary information they needed to be effective to do it, to make that happen, right? Not just me, but my my coworkers. We all together did it together. So it wasn't all me, you know. But as a team, we gave them what they needed so that they could help us. And then once that all got turned around, dude, like it got so much better. Like it just got really efficient. Then we were able to finally, not just us, all the branches, we were able to get bodies down the line that we needed to get done. There were no more, there weren't as many processing issues. It just, then the hours started coming down, right? Because then, we didn't need to be there so long because now we're operating efficiently, right? So then now we're able to work out. Now we're able to go to the gym. Now we're not working 12-hour days. We're working now. We were able to split it into three shifts. We finally got an additional person. So there were 3 of us. So then we each worked 8-hour shifts, and so I would come in at 5 a.m. I would get all the scheduling done. I would line up the day, line up the week, submit all the medical paperwork, like the med reads, and then the next guy would come in at like 8 a.m. And then he would, I would leave at 2, he would leave at 4, and then the other guy would stay in and be there till close to make sure the last applicant left, right? And that's when things got so much better, because now you have time to breathe. You have time to do other things, work out. You have time to eat lunch. Fuck, I didn't even eat lunch for years, because I never had time. I couldn't even just eat and work, It was I'd go to put a spoon in my mouth and somebody would be like, oh, we need this. They'd call me. And then, MedFloor's 2 stories up. I'd have to stop what I'm doing and run up. We don't have an elevator. So I'd have to run up the stairs, 2 flights to go see the medical team and talk to the medical officer. Wow. Every time some random flight chief called me with a problem, and what they don't realize is all 7 flight chiefs would call me in the same day, and I'd go up and down them stairs 7 times, you know what I mean? But they don't think nothing of it, so things, I had leadership was sitting in Syracuse, New York, but I'm in New York City. So if we had problems, that's why they never wanted to come down, because they didn't want to do the 5-hour drive to come hang out with us for a week and find out that the problem was wrong. They were too comfortable sitting in Syracuse, not just out of sight, out of mind, right?
Sure.
Steve, you deal with it, right? I don't want to deal with it.
Yeah, that's what you're there for.
Yeah. Probably one of the worst leaders I ever had in my entire life was that leader.
Was the squadron commander?
No,
or the group commander.
The operations
commander. Operations commander for MEPCOM?
No, for my squadron.
Because
as a liaison, you work for the recruiting squadron. You don't work for MEPCOM. You're a liaison. You're the recruiting squadron's representative in that facility.
So you're ops chief?
No, not the ops chief, the ops commander. So the ops chief would be the senior NCO in charge. The ops commander would be like the lieutenant or captain in charge.
Oh, I'm tracking what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. When I first got to the 314th, so I brought a BMW with me from Aviano, from Italy. So it got shipped over here. It was like a 318. I don't know if you ever saw it when we were office partners, but in any case, that's what I drive up to the squadron.
Yeah,
that's my car.
So the white one, right?
The white one's the one you saw. This
Okay.
This one was a black 2-door.
I got you. Yeah.
So the operations officer. He's like a young lieutenant, dude. And he comes out to the park and he's like, "Is that your car? Is that your car?" And I'm like, "I just got out of it. Yeah, it's my car." Like,
no, it's the other guy's car.
I drive this shit. Like me. He's like, "How can you afford that?" And I'm like, I'm looking around.
Like, how is that your business, bro?
What, bro? Like, get out of here. And then remember Chewy, right?
Yeah.
Chewy used to tell this dude, he used to be like, "Do your parents even know you're here?" Like,
it's wild, right? Like, so I had this leader, mind you, everything from early on in my career, right? Like all the shit that I went through. And then I had this dude that had been in 4-6 years. Yeah. Talking that way to me, like, treating me that way, like bro, like you just cut your teeth like 4 years ago. You're acting like you're some hot shit or something, like even if part of what you say is correct, the way you're going about it, bro, you're crushing the morale of your people.
Yeah.
Absolutely crushing them. And a lot of it is because you failed to see, number one, that there was even a problem that wasn't your people's fault. And you weren't even willing to take the time to research to see if they were right or not.
Yeah.
You just automatically assumed because a couple senior NCOs told you that we weren't living up to expectations, that we weren't living up to expectations and it was our fault. It was like an assumption, right? When it really came down to, it wasn't us. It was somebody external that we had to partner with to get things done that was causing all the problems, right? And it's like, so needless to say, I went from being in this unit's eyes one of the worst people in the squadron to the NCO of the year the next year.
Wow.
Right? When that person moved aside.
Wow.
Right? So did I change that much? No, I don't think so. Did parts of me change? Yeah, absolutely. I did recognize there were some things I could do better.
Sure.
Right? There was some maturity there, right? Sure. I had to assume responsibilities, but at the same time, I didn't change that much.
Yeah.
I'm still the same. I was still the same person, but leadership changed. Yeah. And it was amazing what results you can get when leadership changes and you get good leadership.
Dude, I'm so glad you brought this up. So, okay. I'm so glad you brought this up.
Sure.
When I'm having conversations with people who like have never served, or in any case, they're intrigued by, hey, like, how did you do 24 years? How did you stay in this long? And there's a bunch of reasons why, right? Earlier, I was telling you, it was the people who come into your life throughout your career that help you progress to the next levels and that sort of a thing.
Yeah.
Also, it's about, dude, it's almost like luck almost, because, and when I'm talking about what I mean by that is that you could be, and I know for a fact that there's someone listening or watching this and they're going to be like, yeah, like I can totally relate to what this guy's saying, what Mach is saying. And what I'm getting at is that you could be doing great work. You could be NCO of the year, Airman of the year, all these different things.
You could be crushing it.
But what people don't understand is that in the military, not only does like your level, like your peers come and go or move around, but also like supervision does the same thing.
Yeah.
So when people are being shifted and moved around, you get a new group of people together. Let's just say leadership, right? There's a whole thing that happens. And I've talked about it on the podcast a bunch of times about like group dynamics, and like there's all these different things that need to be happening for everyone to kind of like get on a good rhythm.
Yeah.
And if it just so happens that the current is going against you for some reason, where maybe like last year you were it, but now
the whole leadership changed.
The whole thing has changed.
Yeah, right.
And all it takes is for one person to feel that their perception of you is the perception.
Correct.
And that's all they need, man. And like now you're going against the current, where a year ago you were going with the current, everything was cool, right?
The dynamic changed.
So
And also in recruiting, when you're in your original career field, it's not as bad. It still happens, but generally you get leaders that have been in that, they're in that, that's their career field, right?
Yeah.
Like, in recruiting, they snatch these officers randomly from all over they don't have recruiting experience. They've never been recruiters.
Yeah.
They don't know jack about recruiting. And now this fool is your ops commander or your squadron commander or whatever. Maybe they were just running an air mobility squadron last year.
Yep.
And now they're a recruiting squadron commander.
Yep.
If you don't have a solid senior enlisted advisor and you don't have like a solid ops chief that knows what way is up to guide them, and they just are left to run, like they could crush morale in a unit.
Yeah.
Because they're making decisions and they don't even know what they're doing, and you have NCOs that are maybe on their second or third recruiting tour already that have been in it for quite a while and know what they're doing. And now this person has no idea what they're doing, making all the decisions. You know what I mean? Like
it's so true, man. And the reason, like I was listening to what you were saying, and like the reason why it resonated with me is because it's happened to me so many times throughout my career. Like so many times over 24 years, it's numerous times. Like, it could be a deployment. You could get deployed.
Yeah.
And that's another one that's really interesting how that plays out, because in a deployed environment, again, there's like a whole dynamic thing that needs to be figured out, and it has to be figured out pretty quick. I would say it probably happens within the first month or so, because you don't have much time.
You have to feel everybody's feeling each other out, right? Like,
yeah. And again, if there's a perception of you, good or right or wrong, like you're gonna have a hard time,
Yeah.
And
it's not like in the civilian world, you get a bad boss, you can tell them to kick rocks and quit.
Yeah.
You can go get another job.
Yep.
You can't just quit in the military.
No.
Like you're along for the ride. If you still got 3 years left on your 4-year contract, buckle up.
Yep.
You're on for the whole. You can't quit. You can't go anywhere. There's nowhere for you to go. So even if somebody's being toxic, you can't get away from them. Now they're getting better now because now they're starting, like the military's starting to get a clue about it.
Mm-hmm.
But for a long time, like you could be under toxic leadership for quite a long time before you even have the opportunity to separate or retire.
And also in line with that, like even knowing how to navigate it, because here's the one thing, like you could be in a shitty situation, but you'll be like, nah, dude, like I'm seasoned. I've been around a while. No, that's wrong, and this is why it's wrong. And here's the AFI, here's the Air Force instruction that states, you know what I mean? As you learn to like navigate, but
correct, yeah.
But early on, you just have to buckle up and hold on tight.
Yeah, pretty much.
And just try to figure it out.
And
man.
even if you know the regs, if the person that's giving you a hard time is still operating within them, there's nothing you can do about it.
There's nothing you can do. Yeah,
you know what I mean? If they're not
part.
breaking,
Sure.
if they're not breaking regs like IG complaint worthy, then there's nothing you can do about it. You know, like that's where it's really tough. And so that's kind of what my situation was. I had one that wasn't really wasn't with it. Thought they were with it, but they weren't with it as much as they thought they were.
I want to say something to any service member who's maybe watching or listening, who's in a rough situation at the moment. Mach wants to tell you, you hang on, and you hang on tight, because the other side, I promise you won't. What was keeping you up today, was making you lose sleep today. In a few years from now, it won't.
I tell you, since this retirement,
it just won't.
It's been gravy, man. Like I'm 2.5 years post retirement now, and I don't stress about a whole lot these days. I mean, my kids, drive me crazy, but that's like in a loving way, like whose kids don't drive them crazy,
for
right?
sure, yeah.
But like, but I don't stress about things like, for example, like if my boss calls me now and it was like, Steve, I need this, and if I'm like, well, you gave me like 10 other things to do. Like, where is this at in the priority, right? And if they're like, well, like it doesn't need to be done right this second. All right, cool. I'll get to it on Monday if it's Friday, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. Yeah. First thing in the morning, I'll talk to you on Monday, 8, 9 o'clock, whatever. We'll get it done. Military? No, you're working Saturday, bro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
The what?
Yeah.
Playoffs, right? Like, you're doing it right that second, right? Like, one of the things I would tell folks that are getting out, like, and they would ask me where I work at now, how the culture is, and I'd be like, let's put it this way: I haven't had a phone call after 5 p.m. since I retired. As a recruiter, as a flight chief, as a MEPS guy, I was getting phone calls after 5 o'clock all the time. People didn't care that I'm at home eating dinner with my family. They could care less. We have a mission. This is what needs to be done, and I need you to do it right this second, right now. Like, where's decompression time?
Mm-hmm.
You wonder why people in the military are having mental stress at such a high number, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, when that's how you treat people 7 days a week, and I had leaders that were like, I'd be like, dude, it's freaking Sunday. And they'll be like, you raised your hand and you gave the oath. You're 24/7. If I need you at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday, you're going to answer the phone at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. I don't deal with that anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
now,
it's
don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
There's
sure.
civilian jobs that does happen.
Of course.
Law enforcement, first
Of course.
responder, things
Yeah.
like there are some niche career fields that are like that, right? But for the most part, I work from 8 to 4, 9 to 5. I don't work weekends. Like, my boss doesn't call me on the weekends. If we don't get it done by 4 or 5 o'clock on Friday, 8, 9 o'clock in the morning on Monday, we'll get back into it.
We're getting.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, so for folks like, one thing I told you, my father got out after 9 years, right? And to this day, he's like, man, looking back, he's like, man, I wish I had stayed in, because when you're in it, you're like, oh, man, there's no way out, right? Like, you're stuck.
Mm-hmm.
You feel stuck.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're able to ride it out, and then you get to that retirement, then it's just like, oh. You know what I mean? You're like, I'm so glad I wrote it out.
It's a different feeling, man.
It is, man.
It's a different feeling. Like, for me too, man, like, when I got that assignment, so when I got back from Bagram, I got hit with that assignment to go to Korea.
Yeah.
I just got engaged to my wife. My wife is like, hey, like, it'll be fine. Just go. Like, it'll be fine. We just did 6 months. I'm like, no. You don't understand. Like, this Korea thing's a really different thing.
Well, yeah, because you're doing exercises. You're doing,
Dude, not only that, bro. Like, that's one part of it.
Sure.
Like, I'm thinking, my personal reflection is like, I just did that shit 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And I barely survived it. You know what I mean? Like, I barely left there with all my stripes.
I hear you.
Like, Korea, dude, is spring break for a year.
It's like grown folk Chuck E. Cheese over there. Man.
Yup.
Like, yeah.
Yep. You want to see people lose their mind about some shit, bro? Go to Korea, dude.
Go to Korea and drink something with a snake in it. You know what I mean? Like,
and you will see. And the crazy thing about it too is that what I try to explain to folks is like, you don't understand, like, the people that you work with, you live with.
Yes. In the dorms.
You know what I mean? It's almost like college, but instead of going to class, you're going to work.
Yeah.
But you all live together in this building.
So you see them all the time.
You drink together, you party together, you see all the fuckery, and then Monday morning you got to go do a job, and then you see them at work, and you're like, bro, like, you were crazy. Like, you know what I'm saying? But what I'm getting at is, dude, is like, I already went through that.
Yeah.
And I already did it. And I'm telling you, like, I barely survived it. Why would I want to put myself back? You know, and that's the beauty in experience and, like, learning and knowing about yourself. But dude, it's funny how, like, when I deferred those orders, dude, I was out in a month. I was out of the Air Force in 1 month. It was that quick. Deferred the orders? Orders are deferred? Okay. Out. Like, done. Here's your terminal. Here's this. Here's this. Here's this.
Yeah, right.
And dude, but I think back on it and I'm like, man, like I was at 16 and a half years when I did that, when I pulled that move.
And then what preparation did you get? They were like, all right, you're out in a month later, you know?
So what's funny about that, thankfully for like guys like you and I, like, you know, we were recruiters and like, you know, I always feel like there's like a special kind of a thing that recruiters have. And because you and I were recruiters, I kind of like, I had a strong understanding of like, I felt that I had the skill set that I'd be okay. I didn't think it'd be easy,
Yeah, sure.
but I think I'd be okay.
Yeah.
And thankfully my wife, you know, what better support system than someone that's like constantly in your ear, like everything's going to be fine. You just do this, and this, everything will be fine. Yeah, dude.
Right? You know.
So yeah, I got into like commercial real estate, did that for a little bit. That was a crazy one. You know, here I am coming from a deployment, coming from like a military background, and now like I'm, you know, doing commercial real estate, which is in New York City. That was dude, like I could do a whole podcast.
That's a hustle. There,
just on that.
Yeah. That's
just on the fuckery that goes on within that. I don't even know what to call it. Like that entity or that landscape. Really, really wild. And I think the beauty of what happened after that was that we got pregnant with Brooke. So then it was great because, you know, I went and I was like, hey, look, like I'm not going to be able to continue, you know, I'm giving you 2 weeks, you know, and I was able to be a stay-at-home dad for
now imagine if you were on active duty and you were in the middle of an assignment, stationed in the middle of New York City. Would you have been able to get out of that?
Nope.
Guess what they would have said? Sorry.
They would,
you know.
No, you know what they would have said? This is what they would have said, bro. They would have said, balance. It's all balance.
It's all balance, man.
You know, it's all about, you know, you gotta live like a balanced life. Like, no shit.
By the way, you better make goal.
Yeah, no shit. I gotta live a balanced life, you know?
What I mean?
Dude, you know what's really wild is that my daughter was like premature. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking to myself, had I been in Korea with a little girl who's premature, like, dude, you know exactly what's gonna happen. They'll be like, yeah, you can go back to the States, but you could only go for 30 days. Or, we'll be a little bit more lenient with you. We'll let you take all of your leave. I only got 40 days. Well, then you got to come back after 40 days.
Right. You know.
Meanwhile, I got a little girl who's in the NICU. I'm telling you, man, this is what I go back to. And I mentioned it earlier. What's meant for you is meant for you. What's meant for you is meant for you. It's already written. You just gotta, you know, you gotta walk the walk. But it's, you know what I mean? So yeah, man, Steve, every day, I pinch myself, dude. I'm like, how? And then, man, like you're sitting around and you think about like those deployments and this and that, and you know, all the toxic leadership that you had to like navigate and get through. But here we are on the other side, man. And it's just like, that's why with this thing, man, with like this podcast, like I always want to like continue to like and maybe like it's in my own way that I just want to let folks know, like, man, it's going to be all right, man. It's going to be all right. It's going to be okay. Like you may be in a tough spot right now, but I'm telling you, it's going to be okay. And when you get to the other side of whatever it is you're going through, you look back on it and you're like, man, I'm kind of glad I stuck it out, you know?
Yeah.
You know, somebody was telling me one time, I don't know how I remember this, but they were saying like, that when there's a storm, like if there's a storm brewing, like where there's like cows, that when the storm's coming, they'll run from the storm. But then there's like certain species that will run towards it. They'll run towards the storm, and then they just get like, you know what I mean? Like they make it to the other side where there's no more storm. And then the ones that keep running from it, they're running long because they're trying to get out of the way of it, you know?
They're just prolonging their suffering.
They're prolonging their suffering.
Yeah. Sometimes it's better to just rip the Band-Aid off.
Rip that
just rip the Band-Aid off and get into it. You know what I mean?
Man, dude.
Be comfortable being uncomfortable, you know?
Yeah.
You know, it's funny that I talk to a lot of people that I work with now, and they're like, you know, I haven't been at the company very long, and I've already left one group of the company, and now I'm in a completely different part of it.
Right.
And they're like, how did you do that? And I'm like, you just got to be willing to step out of your comfort zone, you know, and just be confident in your abilities that you're going to be able to do what needs to be done. Be confident that you're going to do it, you know. Yeah. Don't doubt yourself, you know. Like, if you have the skills and you have the experience, you'll be all right, dude. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, don't be afraid.
You when I was a first sergeant before I retired, you know, I as much as I could talk to the younger folks, and a lot of times they're like, "Sure, I already heard this shit." Like you could see it in their face. They're like,
right.
"Bro, like,
all right, Dad,
I heard this one already," but I don't care. Like, you know what I mean? So like, I'm like, yo, anybody that will listen. You know, like if you're gonna listen to what I gotta say, I'm gonna tell you something. You know what I mean? But you know, I would always like tell them, you know, like responsible and accountable. Responsible and accountable. Responsible and accountable will get you to where you want to get to. You know what I mean? And these are like, you know, young airmen that are coming into like maybe like, you know, they're going from like senior airmen to staff, you know, and then they're also in the reserves. So like it's a little bit different, right? Because you and I, we had all this active duty experience.
Yeah, sure.
But then like, you know, it's like mentoring them is just a little bit different. You got to get them to kind of like see it from a different angle, you know. But ultimately, I'm like, hey, man, like you got to think like this. How many times, because now I'm describing like being in the reserves. So in a reserve unit, right, I would tell these younger folks, like, how many times does someone from leadership call you? Just, is it like 5 times a day? Is it 5 times a week? Like when? They're like, oh, no, like, I don't know, like maybe like once in a blue moon. I'm like, okay, so once in a blue moon, right?
Yeah.
So imagine if I knew as a leader that anytime I call you, you're going to pick up the phone, right?
Sure.
You're accountable, like, you're responsible, right? Responsible, accountable. Like, I can get a hold of you, right? Man, like you know who your go-to person is.
Yeah.
Like Mach is going to pick up the phone. Steve is going to pick up the phone. Or if they don't pick up the phone, they're going to get right back to me. Like, you know, like I can expect that they're going to get back to me
within a reasonable amount of time.
Well, like you said earlier, right? Like with a sense of urgency. Right. And that's how you start building your brand. You know, you can start building your brand at a very young age.
You know, what's funny is that's something I'm having to get you know, well, I'm pretty used to it.
You want some Puerto Rican eggnog? A little bit.
I want some Puerto Rican eggnog. So one of the things
don't
I had
ask me questions that you know the answers to.
One of the things I had to learn how to deal with is that not everybody in corporate America has a sense of urgency, right? Like in the military, if you get an email from your leader in the morning, you will answer that email before the day is done.
Yes.
Right? And if you don't, the next day they're calling you to find out why you didn't answer them, right? Mm-hmm. And you better have a good explanation. Now, corporate America, if I email somebody in the morning, I might not get an answer for 2 or 3 days, and that's perfectly okay and normal, right?
How long did it take you to get used to that?
It took me a little while, but not as long as you would think. But you know, fortunately for me, I had a great mentor. Mm-hmm. You know, so Michael, you know, he was my boss and mentor. The great thing about him is he was a currently serving National Guard captain.
Oh wow! Okay.
So not only did he understand military, but he knew how to empathize, right? And
yeah.
He was a good active listener, and so he was able to mentor me the right way. He was able to tell me what I needed to hear when I needed to hear it. And one of the things was, Steve, I understand why you're doing what you're doing. And I wasn't doing anything bad. You know, he's just like, but that's not how it is in corporate America. Like, if you email them, give them a couple of days, you know, because what you don't know is that they may be working on something else that's a higher priority than what you're working on, right? And so you need to understand that. And so it's not that they're not answering you because they're disrespecting you, they don't like you. It's nothing personal. It's that they may have other priorities that they're knocking out first, and then you're on that list of priority, right? Like when they get to it, they'll get with you. They'll answer you back, right?
Yeah.
Now, if it goes like a week, okay, now you need to send some follow-ups. You know, like obviously there is a fine line there, but the point is that I still have that same sense of urgency, right? From all these years, but not everybody does, and that's okay. And that was something that I had to learn. Right. I think every service member goes through that in their transition, right? We're almost institutionalized in a way, not like a prisoner in a prison, but in a way, right? We kind of are.
No, bro, you're right on.
You know what I mean?
You're right on target.
And
we are institutionalized.
So like, you know, that's why I think sometimes there's so much of a disconnect with employers and military veterans is that they don't really understand us. You know, they don't understand UCMJ. They don't understand that we're held to a higher standard than everybody else. And maybe they hear that, but they don't understand what that means. What does that entail? You know, like they don't understand that we're told what we can say, what we cannot say, when we can speak, when we do speak, how long we get to speak for, what we can wear, how we can do our hair. Can we wear earrings in uniform? Can we not? You know, go down the line, 150 things, right? Like they dictate every aspect of our life, right? In corporate America, nobody really dictates a whole hell of a lot, right? Like when you're on the clock, like, yeah, they can dictate a little bit, but at the end of the day, if they do anything crazy, you can always quit. Yeah, like I said, right? You know, like, and HR exists for a reason, right? You know, so like they can't just willy-nilly shoot from the hip, do crazy things like that. And if they are doing that, employees don't stay there very long. So like, for example, if you get on LinkedIn and you go look at a company's median tenure rate, you can figure out kind of maybe they have a good culture, maybe they don't. But if I look at a company and they got 60,000 employees and the average tenure rate's 2 years, I don't know if that culture in that company is really that great. Why is the average only 2 years? That means the average employee, that means they're a revolving door. Now, if I look at a company and it has the average employee stays there 10 years, what does that tell you? They're probably treating them pretty well. Why else would somebody stay somewhere for 10 years unless they're getting treated well?
Yeah, there's a good operational culture.
There's a good culture there, you know? So like, you know, getting into corporate America, like I think sometimes, you know, now there are some companies that are really doing a great job of getting up to speed on that. And I commend them for that. For example, any of the companies that work with, partner with 50 Strong, they are not veteran friendly. They are veteran ready. And there's a difference between the two. Veteran friendly companies kind of talk the talk. The veteran ready companies walk the walk. They're not just talking about it. They're actually doing it. Right. And so, you know, those companies tend to be a little bit more adapted to us and kind of understand us better. And they have positioned teams and employed other veterans to help them understand better. For example, at like Verizon, our ERG is huge. We got like 5,000-6,000 people in it, you know, that are veterans in the company, you know, and so like the company has a much broader understanding of what it means, like what we're about.
What does the acronym stand for again?
What's that?
The acronym you just mentioned?
Valor?
Of VRG?
Oh, ERG, Employee Resource Group.
Okay.
So you can kind of think of it like in the military, like a top 3,
okay,
team
okay.
5, 6,
Sure.
you know,
okay.
Company grade officer. I don't know what each service has their own different unique names that they call them, right?
Yeah.
But basically, it's like a similar type organization, like Air Force Sergeants Association. Like but it's internal within the company.
Okay.
You know, just like a top 3 or a 5, 6, right, or an Airman's Council or whatever. And they operate the same way. They run a lot of the nonprofit stuff, community outreach. So like, for example, Valor is the name of our ERG, and it's Veteran Advocates Leading the Organization Responsibly. That's what it stands for, you know? And so like the company is moving in that direction to create, you know, opportunities for veterans and understand them better. But there's a lot of employers out there that don't understand veterans. And so, veterans are applying to roles, they're interviewing, or they actually get into these companies, but the companies aren't actually veteran ready and they don't understand. And so you'll find like there's a lot of veterans that get out and you'll see them. They'll be on like their second, third, fourth, fifth job in like 2 or 3 years, because they're bouncing from company to company. And it could be either one, the company culture is not veteran ready, or it could be that the veteran themselves don't quite know what they want either, or it could be a mixture of both. But learning, how to adapt to that, I think, it's something that I've been able to learn and see firsthand. And like I said, I had a great mentor who was able to teach me a lot of these things, like information architecture, when you're sending emails out, presentations, how you present, how you say it. I mean, we learn this stuff at NCO Academy and Senior NCO Academy and Airman Leadership School and things like that, but it's different. Like how we communicate in the military is more direct and matter of fact a lot of the times. Where in corporate America, there's a lot of nuance. There's a lot. It's you have to finesse things a little bit more. It could be a little more political. You have to be mindful of what you say. Because somebody might get offended. In the military, somebody gets offended. Oh well, you know what I mean. Like
deal with it.
To deal with it. You know what I mean. In corporate America, it's a little different. So you have to kind of like figure your way around that too. But sense of urgency, man. That was just wrapping this up. Sense of urgency was like. That was one thing that I learned, early on in this conversation we had. What was the one thing I learned on deployments and all that stuff? What did it teach me was sense of urgency. But now sense of urgency has a different meaning. Now that I'm not in the military anymore. It's like, yeah, I have a sense of urgency, but I actually have to keep it in check because my sense of urgency isn't somebody else's sense of urgency. But what I also notice is there's people in corporate America that should have sense of urgency, but there's no accountability to make them have sense of urgency. So sometimes you run into red tape where you just can't get things done just because, like I said, it takes people 2-3 days to answer an email so you got to learn how to like navigate that, finesse that. And that's where a lot of networking and relationship building kind of comes into it, is one of the things that I've tried to focus on is those things, that piece, Yeah, so, one of the things that I've had to learn is how to finesse relationships to get things done when there isn't a sense of urgency. And so what I mean by that is, that's one of the things I've chosen to focus on is the relationship building, getting to know the people around you, getting to know the people above you, getting to know the people below you, getting to know your peers, learn from them, learn from everybody. Get to know them, who they are as people, what do they value, what motivates them, and then find ways to help them. At the end of every conversation I ever have with somebody that I work with is, what can I do for you? Sometimes the answer is nothing. You can't, just keep doing what you're doing, man. You don't need to do anything for me. All right, cool, fair enough. The next time I talk to them, hey, what can I do for you? At some point, they're going to go, you know what? I could use some help on something. Can you help me out with this? I got it, bro. Like, I got it, and then I help them. Now I have solidified that relationship. I have solidified that person can count on me, and I am somebody that they can count on. I am somebody who gets shit done. And it's what it does is it's kind of like when we were recruiters in the office, when you first get into your office, nobody knows who the hell you are. Nobody knows who Mach is or Steve is. No, they could care less, right? Mm-hmm. We have to go out and build those relationships with the high schools, the guidance counselors, the chambers of commerce, business owners. Remember the guy that owned the sandwich shop, Ed? I still hang out with Ed. I still talk to Ed to this day. Remember? Wow. That was a relationship I built in 2009, but I got to know him, right? Remember, he used to help us out all the time, right? Hell, I even was at his wedding when he got married, but at work, but in corporate America, like that's a huge piece is the relationship building. It's not just transactional, sometimes I give more than I take, and that's okay. But now that I've been doing that for a couple of years, now I've built a reputation, and that's where it really comes down to is it's not that I'm worried about reputation, but by doing the right thing and helping people and being there for them and taking the time to build those relationships, you build a reputation for yourself. And a lot of times the reputation is what carries you into your next move, the next level, right? Like when that opportunity opens up and you've been crushing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
All of those people are going to validate you.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to go, hey, I heard Steve applied to this job. Have you ever met him? No, dude. Good dude. You know what I mean? Like they're going to be lifting you up, right? That it's a community is going to lift you up. Instead of you lifting yourself up, the community is lifting you up. And they're cheering. They're your cheerleaders. They're there to cheer for you, right? Like, and so if you can figure that piece out early on in a military transition during a SkillBridge fellowship or something like that, even if it's not SkillBridge and you're just direct hire and you're getting in there, you will open up more doors than you think. And it doesn't necessarily have to be in your own company. You could open up doors external to your company. And when you're ready to take that next step, your buddy over here working at this other company might have that opportunity for you, So that's where, that's when you start like, building your, you were talking about building a network. That's where LinkedIn comes in. I tell my wife this all the time because she's absolutely horrible on LinkedIn. We joke about it, but she's like, why would I spend time on LinkedIn when I already have a job? And I'm like, that's exactly my point. That's the time when you should be building your LinkedIn network, or not just on LinkedIn, on Instagram, whatever, Twitter, whatever floats your boat, dude, multiple platforms, go for it,
Sure.
That's when you should be building your network and building relationships and getting to know people for the time that a random layoff happens, company shuts down. Not every company is as solid as a Fortune 50. Companies go out of business all the time. That's when you need that network. And if it's not there because you never took the time to build it when you need it,
that's not the time.
That's not the time to start trying to build it because now you're behind the curve.
Yeah.
So that's why, I've spent so much time. A lot of people don't know this, but when I retired, I think I had like 200 people on my LinkedIn account. Now, I don't care about follower count or connections counts. That's not what it's about to me. To me, it's about connecting with people that provide value to the military community. That's what it is for me. But in less than 2 years, I am now over 20,000 followers on LinkedIn. Not because I'm the best dude ever. I'm not perfect. I'm not the best recruiter ever. There's plenty of people wiser than me, smarter than me, better work ethic than me, but I'm consistent. And that's where it really comes down to. I consistently engage with people and try to lend out information that helps others consistently. And once again, you're building a reputation for helping people, being there for people. It's not about me. It's about them. It's like when I recruit for the company, it's not about me. It's about filling a position for the company. That's what the company needs, right? It's not me. It's we, right? So, relationship building, dude, huge piece that a lot of people take for granted and don't spend nearly enough time doing. I meet a lot of transitioning service members that they focus all their energy on interviewing and resume and hardly any at all at networking, coffee chats. Like, dude, you asked me earlier tonight before we, did this session, you were like, how was my transition? My transition was smooth. I was like a greased pig going across a linoleum floor, dude. My transition was smooth as shit. And the reason for that was because I leaned in way in advance and was building those relationships and talking to the right people way ahead of time.
Sure.
So by the time that it was my moment, I was able to capitalize on my moment and do it quickly and obviously successfully, right? So, if I could tell somebody that's getting out, like some of the things that they could do is coffee chats. Get on LinkedIn, start building your network, get that profile rocking, right? Start figuring out what industries you want to get into and use LinkedIn to find people in those industries that are doing what you want to do and are where you want to be, and start reaching out to them. Hey, I'm so-and-so, whatever. I'm trying to get into this industry, potentially this company. You think you could spend 15, 20 minutes kind of tell me a little bit about what you do and what your company's about? Dude, you do 10, 12 of those in a certain industry, you're going to get a pretty good picture of like what that industry is about, and then of course you're going to want to go to info sessions and things like that. But, that piece right there, the folks that are doing those things are the ones that stick out and stand out, especially in like a Hiring Our Heroes cohort where there's 1,200 people in a cohort. How do you stand out? Everybody in that cohort's a veteran with leadership experience. They're either an NCO, a senior NCO, or an officer at some point. They all trump each other. Nobody has, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're all program project managers, quotations, right?
Sure.
We all have leadership experience. We've all led teams. So what sets you apart from everybody else? Nobody gives a crap what your rank is in the civilian world. They could care less unless you're like a general officer or something. Nobody really cares whether you're a senior NCO or a company grade or a field grade officer or even an airman. Can you meet the requirements in the job description? Yes or no? You know what I mean? Like
just like that.
Just like that. You know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't care how many years you served or what you've been doing. If you can't meet what's outlined in the job description, then you're not going to get hired. You know what I mean? And so, but one of the ways to figure that out is this all goes back to the networking, the relationship building, learning the industry, talking to people, having conversations, learning from your peers, those above you, below you, at the same level as you, whatever, so that's all I got to say about that.
Man. Oh man. Listen, Steve, like that's right on target, man. So true, man. It all comes down to the relation. Like, so I've been given the opportunity to like go out and do speaking engagements lately, which is really, really, really cool. And I'm like, what? Like, you want to hear from me? I'm like, who
this guy?
Like, who are they talking about? Like, me? You want me to, And then it's funny because they're like,
bro, this is freaking good, man.
Isn't that good?
Dude, that's like, yeah.
Yeah. Cheers, bro. Yeah. I'm glad you liked it, bro.
Bro, like that's freaking good.
That's my
made that?
That's my uncle's recipe.
Oh my God, dude.
Yeah.
That's like liquid cookie, man.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God.
But dude, one of the things that it depends like what the group is for the most part, how I tailor it. But ultimately, I'm pretty much stating like, hey, look, everything you do, what I learned early on in my military career was that everything we do is relationship based.
Yes.
It's just dude, and as a first sergeant, that was a really good position for me because naturally, like that was another one that I felt like I was like a duck in water, being a first sergeant, and I would be in these meetings sometimes, and then like you got these company grade officers, and they feel that because of their rank, they should be able to turn this information around fairly quickly and whatever the case may be. And a lot of times, I would have to like interject and be like, hey, like, let me try to help you like my way. And my way was the more like emotional way because I was tied into these folks emotionally.
Right.
Like I knew them. I knew what they were going through. I knew their mother's first name. I knew, like I just knew like maybe I didn't know every single thing, but the key things that they chose to share with me, it's almost like Rain Man in a kind of a way. Like I'm not good with numbers or anything like that, but I can remember like certain things about a person's life or something that they're going through.
Yeah.
And call it like, playing the system or whatever, but like that was something that was unique to me. I felt that I could do that without really struggling to try to figure it out. And I used it to my advantage. And my advantage was like, I had these personal relationships with these folks because I took the time to listen and hear them out. So when it came time, as well as I know, Steve, like when you need, dude, it could be a report that you need that literally 2 people have access to the system. The one person is deployed or on leave, or at a medical appointment, and there's only one other person that can get into that system, that has the login, that can hit print, and you know how to get a hold of that person. Why? Because that person is accountable and responsible. Why? Because you know that you could call that person. You've had that relationship. You've established that thing where like, yo, if I call you, Steve, if I call you, I'm not calling to invite you to dinner. Like, I'm calling because I need you to get something done.
Well, that's like the difference between a leader and an influential leader. Influential leaders in an organization can be very powerful. It's like, do you know who the executive assistant is to a CEO? An executive assistant wields a lot of influential power. They have direct access to that leader. If you like, you know, it's not, I'm just using that one as an example, but
yeah, but you're right on target.
But
man.
that goes back to that relationship build. If you build relationships with people, eventually those people are going to promote into other positions. They're going to find their own successes. And then if you've taken the time to build this network, you can reach out and get a lot done as an influential leader. You might not be a leader positionally, like you might not be a senior vice president of the company. You could be a manager in the company and have more influential power than a senior executive if you take the time to build relationships within a company. And that's like, you know, it's one of the things they teach us, right, in like Senior NCO Academy is like learning when you take over a team, identifying who your influential leaders are within your unit and getting them aboard with you, right? Like, for example, when I came into my flight in Philly, I knew who my influential leader was. I pulled that person into a meeting and I said, hey, man, like, you've been doing some great things around here and I could really use your help. You know, you seem to know everybody around here. You're connected with everybody. You're a good dude. You have a great reputation. You do good work. You know, I could really use an ally on my side. Now that person's on board, now together, let's go lead this flight together. You know, and when the other people are like, they'll be like, nah, he's for real. Like, let's do what we need to do. You know what I'm saying? Like,
Sure.
Like that's how you can get stuff done.
But imagine if you would have went in with like ego.
Yeah.
And,
right.
and whatever else comes along with that, right?
Correct.
Ego and anger and bitterness. And you're like, yeah, no, this is my flight now. I don't give a shit what like who
right.
Be influential all you want, but I'm the big dog, right? You could have came in like that too.
Yeah.
And what would that have gotten you?
They might listen to you, but when push comes to shove and you really need them, are they going to be there? Maybe not.
Maybe not.
You don't know.
It would have gave you a lot of heartache. I would imagine from my experience.
You know, it's like, oh man, I can't remember his name for the life of me. One of the pro soups that we had, he was like, if you take care of your people and you treat them right.
Who, Ross?
No, not Jerome. But he had some good ones too.
Yeah,
he had some good ones.
Yeah.
He had some good ones too. But no. Oh my God, I can't. It's funny. I was with him in several different units too.
Oh, yeah.
But he ended up becoming the group chief right before I left. But
I would love to talk to him on here.
Oh, man. Jerome?
Yeah.
I haven't seen him since we were in the office.
I follow him on Facebook.
Dude, he has his own business now or something, doesn't he?
I want to hear all about it.
Dude, I think he's got something going on.
I'm going to reach out to him. Mr. Ross, come on, Spark.N.Stride. Let's hang out,
I still remember during my certification, boy, he gave me a hard time. But it was all good, though. Good. It was good feedback.
Dude, he told me on my first inspection, he said, it's just too much stuff. It's just too much stuff for you to have all figured out. It's just too much.
It's too much.
Like, basically, because I was like, look, I got it like this, and I do, and he was just like, yeah, no, it's basically,
you're being extra.
You're passing your inspection.
Yeah, right.
Because I want you to pass your inspection. But if I don't want you to, there's just too much stuff. Basically, he's like, I can figure out, if I spent a day here, I would figure out what the fuck you're not doing.
Yeah, he would pick it apart.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, right.
Oh, man.
He was a good dude. He was a good dude, man.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, for sure.
He was absolutely a good dude.
You know, man, like I would love to talk to like a lot of the folks that were in our unit, like at the 314th. But like back when we were, I would love to talk to Chewy.
I tell you, one of the
Proc,
fucking Proc, man. Proc's a good one too.
Dude, I go see Proc. Look, check this out.
I haven't seen Proc in a hot minute.
Bro, I'm gonna tell you a quick. I'm gonna tell you a quick story. Real quick story. So I'm down at senior NCOA, bro. Like 4 days before senior NCOA, dude, I come down with like a panic attack. I've never had a panic attack, and I like had a freaking panic attack, bro.
Really?
Yeah. Real crazy, Steve. And long story short, I'm driving. I have to leave. I have the panic attack on Friday, and I leave on Monday to Alabama. So I drive down to Alabama. I'm feeling kind of weird. I feel like mental fog. I stop in Charlotte at my buddy's house. Him and his wife, I know them from Brooklyn. As soon as I get to their house, I'm like, guys, listen, I don't know what's going on with me. There's something like weird. Like I don't feel right. They're like, oh, just get some rest or whatever. So the next day, I still feel weird. So I go to the hospital in Charlotte. Anyway, bro, long story short, all this stuff is like happening. And then I'm down. The doctors in Charlotte are like, you should just go back home. And in my mind, I'm like, you don't understand. Like, I've been waiting to go to this school for like 2 years. And pretty much I need to have completed senior NCOA in order to like maintain my position.
Yeah. So
long story short, I go down, whatever. But while I'm down there, I go and I go to Nashville and I go to visit Proc.
So, were you at McGee Tyson?
I was at Gunther Annex at Maxwell.
Oh, you were at because I did mine I did my NCO Academy at McGee Tyson in Tennessee, Knoxville.
No, this one was in at the Annex.
At the Annex. Yeah.
So on the weekend, on this one particular weekend, I drive to Nashville, but I gotta write like a paper and some other stuff, you know. What I mean? And you know, like Proc's like a really good writer, and Proc is like, you know, like he's pretty much like did his master's and everything. And I'm stressing out over this. I'm like, yo, Proc, like I gotta get up early. I gotta write this thing and yada, yada, yada. So before we went out to lunch, I'm like, Proc, let me just write this and let me get this all figured out. So Proc's like, he's leaving me alone. Like in his, I'm writing at the kitchen table. I'm writing on the back patio. So he comes back, he's checking on me. He's like, bro, you still writing this thing? Like, what's going on? Like, what are you writing about? I'm like, nah, I got to get my thoughts and stuff, you know? So to this day, me and Proc have like this inside joke where we're like, see Spock run, sky is blue. Like this, like he's basically saying like, I don't know what the fuck I'm doing. He ended up helping me, but it was funny, man. It was funny, dude. But again, funny. Dude, like it's just guys like that, man, that like dude, like it's guys like him,
Bish, like, you brought up Bish earlier.
Man,
Bish
like,
was great, man.
Dude, like all these dudes, man, and I'm just like, I'm so grateful for the limited time I had them, like in my work life. Like I have them in my life, but at that time, you know what I mean? Oh man,
that's funny. You know, it reminds me. Speaking of writing. When I went to NCO Academy, you know, it's 8 weeks at Knoxville. I was down there for 8 weeks. So I trailered my motorcycle down there because the Dragon's Tail's down there. You know, it's one of the meccas of motorcycling in the United States.
Okay. It's like a big windy, like.
Yeah, it's like a big windy road in the mountains or whatever. Like people drive from all over the world and the United States to go to it, right?
Right.
And I'm like, I am not missing this opportunity.
Yeah.
So the first week of NCO Academy, they give us our syllabus and like everything, like all the upcoming assignments they gave us up front.
Mm-hmm.
So I know what all my homework is for the entire 8-week course right now. You know what I did? That first weekend, I shut myself in my room, ordered some pizza, and I crushed all of my homework, all my papers, all my outlines, and all my speeches in one weekend. And then the next 7 weekends I spent riding my motorcycle. No, I didn't get distinguished grad or anything like that.
Okay.
You know, but
okay.
I successfully passed the course and I had a hell of a time doing it. I learned tons, you know, but you know, and everybody else, like every weekend, they're like, what are you doing this weekend? Man, I got to write my freaking outline. Not me.
Dragon's Tail.
Dragon's Tail, Gatlinburg. You know what I mean? Like we're getting it busy. You know, real. That's for real. Yeah. So like, yeah, dude.
Listen, dude, bro. Listen, thank you, man. Like this was awesome, Steve. I'm so glad, dude. I was thinking to myself, I was like, man, Friday night, hanging out, talking some shit. Like I'm like, you know, like what else could we have been doing on a Friday night?
Well, tomorrow I'm doing Wreaths Across America.
Oh, you doing that?
Yeah. So my motorcycle organization.
Talk about it, man.
Yeah, so I'm the vice president of my motorcycle organization, Sinister Steel, here in Jersey, and so every year we do the Wreaths Across America. So tomorrow I'm leading our run. We're going to go to 6 different veteran monuments, and we're going to lay a wreath down.
Oh, nice, man.
It takes most of the day because we drive from one location to the other. But yeah, so tomorrow I'll be doing that in the morning.
Oh man, Listen, when you get done with all that, send me photos so I can
plug them in.
Plug them into this. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, dude, I can't wait to the next time you come back and hang out with me for a little bit, dude.
Yeah, man.
Oh, Steve, it was good seeing you, brother.
I appreciate it. Man. Yeah.
Listen, that's it for us. We're gonna shut this one down. Spark and Stride.
Spark and Stride.
Stay sparked.
Heavy duty.
It's smart.